So before we start, I'm just going to say yes, it has been a couple weeks since we posted anything, maybe 3 weeks by the time this is posted out. We had some technical difficulties. My computer stopped
Technical
working, and
difficulties.
yeah, exactly. So I was not able to record or edit anything, but we are back, and we are missing an episode, and we will get that back up one day as a surprise
That
bonus
was one of the
episode.
best
So,
episodes ever. It was a double feature. It was food
mm-hmm.
themed. That's all we're gonna
That's
say.
all we can say.
Yeah. So like, just keep posted, and you'll see it come up in your feed. But in the meantime, we did watch a movie, a horror related movie that Tristan picked. Um, Tristan, do you want to talk about this film a little bit?
Now let's talk about something else. Let's talk about
That's fine. Politics?
God,
What game we
no.
play?
No.
Don't think about the
I
don't
thought
think about
everyone
the
liked
election.
politics. Wait, there's an election? I was just talking about local politics. I don't know anything about these big elections.
Another dude's got an erection. No. So this is we picked for this a throwback 1932's The Old Dark House. This is an old school fucking Karloff feature. Pre-Code, that's pre-Hays Code, comedy horror film directed by the inimitable James Whale, based on the novel Benighted by J.B. Priestley. Ensemble cast includes Boris Karloff, Melvin Douglas, Gloria Stewart, Charles Laughton's first Hollywood appearance in this film, Raymond Massey,
Really?
and Ernest Thesiger.
These names are very famous.
And nobody
A couple
remembers
of
them.
them.
Yeah, exactly.
Boris Karloff people remember. I mean,
Are you guys like fans of movies from this generation? Like, is this something like you've grew up with? Is it something you like? Just like, why pick from the 1930s? Classics such as this.
It sets a lot of things up. I guess we watched this again last night at Tristan's house, and there was so many scenes and different things that happened where we could see where other movies decades later kind of took off where this one leaves off. It's really that those kind of 30s Universal movies. They weren't necessarily scary per se, as it was kind of trying to convey this kind of gothic Victorian mood. Almost picking off from Edgar Allan Poe or Mary Shelley or somebody like that, and really just trying to convey just a general sense of I guess dreariness is a good way of putting it.
yeah, it's pretty dreary. I mean, so my dad, he was like in his 50s when I was born already. So he's a pretty old dude, and he grew up on a lot of these old fucking horror movies, science fiction movies. He had a really excellent like collection of fucking VHS tapes of all these old fucking throwbacks. So I grew up on that shit. I love like old black and whites, like crazy movies that reflect the fears of the disillusionment or like in a historical context of that generation or whatever. And this was actually recommended.
All the old Universal classics: Frankenstein,
Yeah.
Dracula, Mummy, Wolfman.
Yeah, I mean, these characters have been done to death like over and over and over and over again throughout like more than a century. Oh no, wait, sorry, a little less than a century.
A little bit less, close enough.
Almost a century. We're still fucking doing vampire, Frankenstein. I guess, well, if we really want to throw back, it's like all the way to the original novels and whatnot. So it's a couple hundred years, few hundred years.
But in this one, though, unlike the Universal famous films, like I loved the Universal monsters when I was a kid. Like that was like my obsession, right? Like you were allowed to watch it because it wasn't too mature,
Right.
so that was your access to monsters. But in this one, like it would have never popped up on my radar because it doesn't have a monster per se.
Yeah, no.
This really felt like a Hitchcock movie more than anything else. Like
Yeah, it
the
did feel
early
like
Hitchcock when it was well, say first of all, James Whale, the director, we know this a little more, but he was a theater director, and this was, you can see a lot. It's very theatrical the way this kind of movie is put on and shot and all that, and that really comes through. And that's when they were trying to figure out how to make horror movies into their own thing, and really a lot of these come off as very dramatic, and it's that very old school British kind of way of acting. You see a lot of that in this.
Totally, yeah, very theatrical. And that's another part I like about old movies is like I was a stage actor, through high school and college and a little bit after that, and like I love that shit. There was just something about it. There was actual like work that they had to do instead of just like they had to fill the space with their energy and with their characters, as opposed to like, the super zoom in, like multiple cuts, digital editing, like has streamlined the fuck out of everything. So actors don't really have to work that hard to get their characters across, or little moments like to communicate something bigger. They had to be bigger, like actors were on stage. Yeah.
No blood, no special effects, no jump
no
scares.
special effects. I don't like that. There's no CGI.
No, get out of here. There were definitely
there's no
CGI in this, obviously, but there are some awesome special effects in this movie.
Yeah, but it's not it's not fake blood and limbs being cut off. There's no blood at all, to my knowledge.
There was not even a punching sound, I believe. Like, during the fight scenes, I just think it was just like quiet, and then you'd hear something hit the wall.
You'd hear the actors react, like you do, oof, like when he gets fucking decked by Morgan, like in the gut, like you hear that guy.
You don't get that cathartic Indiana Jones punch sound effect or something like that. But that's that was a little bit later. So should we just go through the plot?
Let's wrap up.
It's a pretty short movie.
Let's talk about some of these special effects, though. Like it's
a 72-minute movie. First of all,
it's super short.
Well, Tristan, what were the special effects that stuck out to you? Because I'm I'm
really
thinking you said a miniature, and I argued with you that it wasn't a miniature, and so did Zach.
So there's
but maybe I guess
there's three things that really pop out to me. Beginning of the film, they're basically, it's these three people who are driving to some godforsaken Welsh town called Shrewsbury. And it's in the middle. They're caught in the middle of a storm, driving through the Welsh countryside, and the camera will cut between the three people in the car having conversations, and then it'll cut away to what's actually a model of this little car being driven along this dirt hillside. And at a certain point, the entire hillside crumbles down and landslides just behind the car as they're barely making their way past it. And it's all that's a model. That is not a shot away and them creating that.
After seeing the landslide, I think now
the landslide was definitely a model, but the other shot looked pretty good, with the way it looked in the water.
It looked like it was sped up. There was some kind of camera trickery with it. It wasn't.
I think it was all anything that was not the three people in the car. The rest of it was a model. And
once the three people in the car, this whole landslide happens. You see, they're just in the car, and they're like, "Oh no!" So it's it doesn't really cut well with that. And
it's a weird edit. The edit jumps, right? It's like, oh boy, that was close. Let's go to this house
my
here.
My first question is, what's his relationship with these people? Because it's a man and his wife, and you just see them arguing for a few minutes. And then it cuts to they have this friend who's just laying in the back, kind of drunk, who just makes these weird snide comments the whole time.
He's charming. He's charming little witticisms. He doesn't seem to give a fuck. Is what his whole attitude is.
Yeah, he it's pouring down. The road is collapsing, and he's just making these comments and just couldn't be bothered by any of this at all.
Oh, we stopped on our way. We tried to get to Shrewsbury. There's nothing we could do, and something. They took me on the crew, and he's about to fucking sing a shanty or something, trying to light his pipe with his feet up on the fucking seat.
I guess that was supposed to be a "Singing in the Rain" sort of parody song.
This was way before "Singing in the Rain."
Yeah.
Well, actually, it wasn't. It was before the movie, but the stage play in the song was already famous. I mean,
people just sang more back in the day.
Especially
drunk people.
James Whale actually directed Showboat, the musical. He's known mostly for these big, horror movies, but also did Showboat. So very, very multi-talented. Knew a lot about music.
So that's the first special effect. The second is Karloff's makeup. I mean,
that was pretty good.
Karloff is always, he's always in some intense facial makeup, and he looks like this totally this. He's supposed to be this big fucking Welsh guy. You guys watch Archer, right?
Yeah.
All right, you remember that episode where Archer kidnaps Lana and takes her to Wales to he says to make up to her somehow, but it's to visit a fucking a distillery or something.
Is it from the newer seasons?
I think so. But they end up in this house, and there's two guys from the Welsh Liberation Front or some bullshit, and there's this big there's a little Welsh guy that's just kind of charming, like a hobbit, and the other guy is this big dude who's and he don't understand what he says.
I remember this.
Toast, and this all he fucking wants is just a fucking piece of toast, and they can't get him to shut up, but he's huge. That's kind of the character of Morgan that Karloff plays in this. You can't understand what the fuck he's saying. He only listens to the one old lady in the house, and we find out later that he is a pretty terrible drunk that gets violent.
Well, Karloff was an interesting career he had, because he's not really a good actor. He shows up as, this kind of big brooding. Of course, this was a year after Frankenstein, so he was the biggest thing going at the time. And he's known for that. He was in Bride of Frankenstein, The Mummy, all these different Frankenstein movies. Actually, most people don't know he's the narrator of the Grinch Who Stole Christmas TV special, the cartoon one we all grew up with.
Oh yeah, dude, because he's amazing.
Yeah. I didn't even know that.
Well,
at least I forgot.
Yeah, this thing, he kind of always did these, like, I'm a big, kind of brutish guy. And
that's strange, though, because he has this great speaking voice, right?
He does.
Where he can, like, narrate these specials and, like, make them his own. But, like, they always cast him as,
yeah.
Like, they give him no lines. That's got to be sad for him, right? Like, did he?
Yeah,
I don't know
apparently
much
he
of his
trained,
history.
like, he had actually kind of a sad story. Is he trained to be this real actor, and he got typecasted doing these monster things up to the time. Actually, most of those guys had a pretty tragic end. Like, you go see Ed Wood and you hear about how Bela Lugosi was broke at the end of it, and him and Karloff didn't like each other, and Karloff was apparently addicted to drugs or alcohol or something like that, and just couldn't really handle it. And a lot of these monster people kind of got stuck doing that, and then really didn't age well going into the 50s and 60s and other times like that.
Yeah, those days too is easy to get typecasted. Like, that's what they know you for. That's what you're gonna play.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that's. And
yeah.
Didn't they belong to studios at the time too? Like, isn't that your thing?
Well, yeah, this was the age of you were under contract to a studio, so you did the next number.
You did what they did.
You didn't get a choice. It was whatever.
So Universal
you're doing next.
owned his ass.
Exactly. So he was doomed from the start. But I mean, work is work, I guess. But
yeah,
he probably never felt like his skills were totally utilized. I
yeah.
could sympathize with that.
No, but they hyped him up so much. Like, they would even put his name in the title of certain films. Like, it was Boris Karloff.
Well, not until
as
after
the Mummy.
Frankenstein.
Like, that was all over.
Yeah, he was billed simply as Karloff.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if his role was minimal, it's like when you have a bad movie and you have that star you hired for like 2 scenes, like, and you just say he's the give him the bill, the starring name.
Yeah.
And it's mostly to mislead the public.
Yeah. And I mean, he was mainly cast as these monster characters, and Frankenstein, obviously the year before this, directed again by James Whale, because he's a huge guy. I mean, he's only 5'11", which is not that tall by today's.
But in
standards.
those days.
But in those days, he was like a fucking And you see this in one of the like scenes where like his character Morgan is like drunk coming down the stairs or whatever, and he like tries to fight one of the guys, and it takes the 3 of the dudes to like jump on him, and he just like whips them off with like his arms in one go. One guy flies to the wall and knocks over a grandfather clock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was that short. I mean, we should bring up briefly. You know who the Karloff of Britain was, right?
No, who?
So, well, it's funny I said it because Karloff was British,
right.
But there was Hammer, the
Hammer horror films, yeah,
who made the kind of every time Universal made one, they'd make their own kind of rip-offs, and those starred 2 people: Peter Cushing, known best for playing Tarkin,
right,
in Star Wars, and then Christopher Lee, who played Dracula and Frankenstein and the Mummy. So Christopher Lee was just a big, bulking man, very deep voice, and he had a much more prolific career than Karloff. Really kind of ended his career on a high note, doing Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and these other things. So
he had
better end
so
than
many
Karloff.
fucking good roles, man. Like when he died, I remember seeing the
legend.
list of all the shit that he got to be. I was like, that is a life. That's a good fucking life.
And he had a death metal band. He did like everything. What a renaissance man of the darkness.
He was a classically trained opera singer. Yeah, and then when he's in his 90s, he put out this metal album about Charlemagne. Yeah, I remember that album.
Yeah,
it's so great.
What a character.
No kidding. R.I.P.
Oh.
But yeah, so like so the makeup is the second one, and then lastly, which is probably overlooked just because we're so used to like soundtracks and like curated sound production in most films, like all of the like the noises that you hear in that movie, like those are old school stagecraft of like the thunder is like a big fucking thunder like sheet metal, like somebody some stagehand is off like next to the soundstage like waving that fucking.
And for wind, you have that wheel with the sheet, right? And you like roll it around.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I could definitely hear that when you can hear the like, ooh, the wind is howling, ooh, and it's like, yeah, we've all heard this, you know.
That old fucking shit, like, is fucking ingenious that, you know, over many years, like, you know, stage people just came up with these special effects, and those are the same effects from old school productions that you hear in Old Dark House. You know, just have a track you can fucking download from the internet.
Yeah, that's what's interesting about it is, you know, for that time is, you know, movie making, especially, you know, movies with sound, you know, this was like a few years after the Jazz Singer.
Yeah.
You know, just a 4 or 5 years later, maybe. And, you know, yeah, they were just, you know, let's take all this old stage stuff and point a camera at it. It wasn't really big on different camera angles and stuff like that. Just kind of point it.
They used some dolly shots in this, surprisingly. Like, they dollied up a little closer for some close-ups.
The shot I liked was the kind of funhouse mirror thing they kept doing.
Oh, yeah, with Rebecca Femme.
Yeah, they would show her in these different, and the different angles of the mirror would just get more and more grotesque as each shot went by. It just kept this really off-putting kind of effect.
I feel like they wanted to do a bigger shot with the shadows, with the Gloria Stewart, I believe is her name, Margaret, the blonde girl with the dress.
Yeah.
Like, remember, she's doing little birdies and everything, and then the old lady came.
Miss Waverton.
Yeah, they wanted
Margaret
to do this
Waverton.
cool little shadow shot. Yeah, that's that lady, the blonde girl. She's actually the woman that played Titanic, the really old woman.
No way.
Who drops the heart. That's her.
Really?
Oh, that's nice.
Wow.
Nice.
So that's an
trivia
interesting
drop,
little
bro.
tidbit.
That's
exactly.
awesome.
Yeah, so like we get to see one of her early roles. She's only 22 years old, and she was like in her 80s, late 80s, early 90s when she was in Titanic.
Amazing.
She lived over 100 years old. Yeah, she's been around.
Heyo.
I bet she's got stories.
Oh man.
But still no room on the door for Jack.
No. Jack's got to go.
Yeah, get the fuck off my.
You don't even have a job, dude. Like, all right.
It's a fucking artist. Yeah, you should have married Billy Zane. That guy had money.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. God, dummy.
Oh, dear. All right, so we can get into plot. Those are my three special effects things. Just to because they're so intrinsic to horror genre, science fiction. Like even in the old school, the sound effects or the special effects like are key.
Well, all right, let's get into plot. I'm going to start off a little bit with the plot. So it's a pretty stripped down plot.
They do it.
Character driven, and like the characters arrive, the first group arrive at the house, and they meet the old man and his sister, who she runs the house. And the old man, he seems a little, he's a nervous man, he says. He's a little neurotic.
He speaks kind of like this, and he doesn't know
Yes.
what's going on, and he's a little scared all the time, and he talks shit to his fucking sister, because she's such a fucking bitch! So,
But not just talk shit to her, though. No. It would have been funny.
Oh,
But,
they were blasphemous. Oh, she's very
Exactly.
concerned about God.
Very
and preaching.
religious. Yes, and they described their history, their family history, and he doesn't like talk shit to her directly. He like insinuates things, like by complimenting her, talk about how pious she is,
it does
like how powerful her gods are.
There's a very English way that's utilized throughout this movie of talking shit to people, where you say one thing that means completely different a thing.
Exactly, like she's like, oh, your gods, like they've blessed this family, and we've been so like blessed
Fortunate
this whole
and
time.
peace and
Obviously,
plenty, yes.
Yeah, right. The opposite of everything that's actually they've experienced.
Horace, I don't need to
So he's
hear
doing
you. I
that.
can see you're blaspheming.
Yeah, exactly.
What if I am?
They have Karloff as this kind of a drunken idiot manslave.
He's not drunken yet.
This is really coming into
He's not drunk
This is
yet.
where the pre-code like beauty of pre Hays Code era Hollywood filmmaking comes in, because one of the things that you couldn't have shown is white slavery. That's in the Hays Code. You're not allowed to show white slavery.
Is that really?
That's really a thing. I looked it up.
What a weird rule.
Yeah, you're not allowed to show pointed profanity, which includes God, Lord, Jesus Christ, like hell, damn, or God.
No.
Any licentious or suggestive nudity, even in silhouettes. Illegal traffic of drugs, any inference of sex perversion, white slavery, Miscegenation, right below that,
Oh.
which is sexual relationships between the races, sex hygiene and venereal diseases, scenes of actual childbirth, in fact or in silhouette, children's sex organs.
What?
I love this.
How
list.
times have
Obviously.
changed in Hollywood.
Leave it to the Catholics,
Yeah.
man. They didn't leave anything. No stone
No,
unturned.
very thorough.
Ridicule of the clergy and willful offense to any nation, race, or creed.
Except, well, I mean, we're not going to say it. Except, you know,
Except for
certain
black people?
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah.
can still do blackface. Well, actually, I'm not sure about that because
No,
after the
that
Hays
was
Code,
20s.
yeah, exactly. The jazz
That was
singer.
So
Right.
Gone with the Wind was after the. So
Oh,
let's do a little bit of
yeah.
background on what the Hays Code was exactly. It was
All right, a
this
little bit.
set
Let's go
of moral
lightly.
standards for these movies.
Yeah. So there was basically there was these two Catholic guys. One was a layman, the other was a Jesuit priest. They basically rallied around this cry of like their parish, like, and Catholics at large or religious people at large, who were decrying the corruption of Hollywood, like the corrupting influence of popular motion pictures, because
This is pre-Red Scare, even, right?
yeah.
It was around Prohibition era, was what
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So you've got the abstinence from alcohol movement, and at the same time, there's this
Mhm.
whole moral, like,
the temperance.
the temperance movement. Because you saw that, the Roaring Twenties, the gay 20s, is,
Yeah,
where everything was just
That's
on
James
the table.
Whale called it.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. And like where licentiousness and promiscuity and all this shit was happening and was out there and nobody gave a fuck. It seemed,
Mm.
and movies were
You
part
can buy
of that.
heroin and morphine off the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. And like gangsters were running wild with shit, like, and then the 30s, the Depression hits, and all of a sudden everybody gets a fucking wake up call. They're like, oh no, God is smiting us for our evil ways. We have to save the fabric of society, and like, really, it's just because everybody's poor.
Yeah. The market crashed and because the whole thing was
That
yeah.
shit brings you closer to God.
Right. True.
Whether you want it to or not, it's like, I got fuck all else. I guess I gotta go to church. I can't go to the bar anymore.
And as a consequence, our culture and our motion picture culture, had to tie their hands behind their backs and really leave out a lot of things in most of their films.
Yeah.
But they find ways, like they make, like I'm wondering, like she makes I don't know if this is jumping forward or not, but they make a comment like about how that's probably how wet her shoes are, and the guy's like, I bet that's not the only thing that's wet.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
How does that fit?
I mean, I think that's.
Am I misreading?
Go for it, Zach.
A lot of that, what I saw was, knowing, we'll get into more about James Whale, but James Whale was a gay British theater director, and
No. A
well,
theater
yeah,
director?
a whole lot of this movie, what I got from it was, it's obviously very gothic, but it also, I got a lot of Oscar Wilde from it. And Oscar Wilde, there's many explicitly sexual, if not, gay jokes within that, but
Yeah.
they're kind of
This would be
they're
implicit.
kind of done in such that way where if you make kind of an innuendo and make a joke around it, you could kind of get around the code back then. And that's a lot of these jokes. They go so quickly that you're almost not sure they were there. I know you guys watched the movie a few times, so you probably caught it a lot more in the second or third viewings than I did just watching it once. And really, it's the whole thing is about subtext. And it's that very British way of
Hiding the
being
truth.
passive aggressive and saying insulting people without actually insulting them.
Yeah.
Very, very British
criticizing
way.
religion without actually criticizing by praising it. It's all
Yeah.
those sorts of
One thing
things.
that stuck out to me this time, like on the third viewing, was that there's this moment where Horace Fem, he's the brother of the older sister who runs the house, very effeminate man.
British.
No,
Not
he is very effeminate. Like even in comparison with the other British men in the film.
true. Yeah, they're all tough
Yeah,
guys.
he's very dainty. He's very very sensitive, and he talks about how he alludes to the fact that no, I think he actually says it directly that he's wanted by the police. Like he's actually hiding out in this old dark house against his will because if he goes back to say London or something, the cops will get him. and he never
right.
says why, and nobody ever questions why. Probably
Yeah.
because
There's
he
like,
was
oh, that
gay.
happens. Yeah. Oh,
Ah,
true.
so for buggery.
Yeah, buggery, right? Yeah.
Ah.
So he might have been caught at a boy's house or a lady's house or what do they call those back in the day? I can't even fucking remember. There was a name for them. Like there would be these houses just full of drag queens, basically, in Britain, where you could go and get a ladyboy for the night, or just be a gay man, or a gay person, in the company of other gay men dressed as women if they felt like it.
Is this where Turing would go?
Oh, maybe.
Probably.
I'm just wondering.
It was probably a bit. It was probably a bit more this has been a thing for hundreds of years in Britain.
Yeah, they have bathhouses in America, right? That's the
Yes.
That's the story here.
Well, with Britain though, I don't know. There's more of a, I don't want to say a culture of cross dressing, but within their theater, it's more of a trope, I guess. Is men dressing like women.
Yeah.
Certain times of Shakespeare,
yeah.
You'd always have a women's roles played by men, and the kind of
young boys.
Oh, I feel like over here with RuPaul, cross dressing is like a kind of an exaggerated, really gay drag queen thing, and over there it's, I don't know, it's more of an art.
There is a cross dresser in this movie, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with any of that. We just didn't think about it at the time. The father,
Who?
the father. That was played by one of the women.
Very good,
right.
very good.
Rudwick
So they
fan.
inversed it. Yeah, maybe they inversed it on purpose. Maybe that has something to do with the code of some kind, or like the tradition of like dressing up as your other gender.
For the sake of intellectual conversation, it could be, but it wasn't. It was actually
No.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Good guess.
Did you look it up?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, that's fair. It's just that Whale couldn't find a man that looked old enough to be 102.
That's the story though. And he's sticking to it.
Fair
he has
enough.
to, right?
Fair
People
enough.
are old then. That brother, the really decrepit looking one, he was like 40 years old when they made this.
Oh my god.
People were just old then. It's just, if you
once you
survived
hit
to
40,
be 40, you'd live through, the depression and the late
You got
1800s.
10 or 20 years left, tops.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
If you're lucky.
So, yeah, if he would have said anything to make it sound normal, right? Like you don't tell the press if you have an actual intent to subverting something.
But it's
maybe that was the true story. Maybe it wasn't. I don't know. I'm gonna think of it as it's deeper than just that.
Right.
That's gonna be my interpretation.
That's his story, and he's sticking to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, like the snide, I don't know if we want to go into more of the snide, side commentary or particular lines that mean not what they mean.
Well, should we stop everything and kind of do a very quick rundown of the plot?
Oh yeah,
kind of got sidetracked on that.
Yeah, we sidetracked. Josh.
All right, so they're eating dinner. He's making coy comments.
Well, how did they get there, Josh?
Who's they? The people in the car?
Yeah.
There we got there. Where did you got that far?
All right, so they're trapped in the rain. They have to get in the fucking.
Yeah, they're trapped in the rain.
They bang on the door in this beautiful shot. Like they don't think they're gonna have any luck. I think the Pendrel, their gay companion, making snappy comments is like, oh, maybe they're all dead. Wouldn't that be something? If they're all just around with the lights on, no one just slowly decaying. And then the door opens a crack, and you see the half face of Karloff in his makeup, this scarred up fucking manservant face
with a weird eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
wonky,
and it's the immediate jarring shot. It's like you are at that moment in the horror genre. It's just whoa, okay, we're here.
So the brother and sister, they tell them to leave, and they're like, we're trapped, we're gonna stay here. So they say, fine, you can stay here tonight, but there's no beds. You'll just sit by the fire.
No beds.
So
they're
having dinner, and then there comes another knock at the door. I don't know who could it be, and it's a very drunk Charles Laughton playing Sir William Porterhouse. He's very Falstaffian in every aspect of that word, I guess. And he's got a young chorus girl with him who's his concubine or something, and she's very.
No, she's just a.
She's kind of a lower class Eliza Doolittle, kind of loudmouth little free spirit thing, and he's very loud as well. So he comes in, and they're all very proper and British, and he immediately something comes to his head. He says it out loud. If we were making this today, he would be the one American in the movie, probably.
Right. No, this is a class commentary because he's Sir William Porterhouse. He's of the upper classes, so of course he's a fucking twit, or just really annoying.
Yeah.
And he says, what's the fucking line that he comes in?
Have a potato.
Oh god. Yeah, right, he's being so fucking loud in the middle of dinner and they're trying to sit down. He's like, oh, roast beef to fill a man's stomach, that'll do it. Bah, bah, bah. He's like trying to like glad hand and like give the elbow to fucking Horace Fem, and Horace Fem turns on him with all of his like fucking queen fucking sharpness and just throws shade at him by saying, have a potato. Which really means...
And he catches the hint.
Yeah.
He gets real, like, he lowers his head a little bit, like, oh.
Oh, okay. Shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
Oh, God.
So kind of after dinner, they're all sitting around, and then they slowly begin to go, in different directions. And this is setting up that classic,
I thought they had a conversation first.
Go out into the house.
Oh, there are conversations happening continuously.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's conversations, but
it circle.
It generally goes into, they go out. Sir William's girl and and Penderel, the friend of the original couple, go out to the car to fetch something.
To get schnookered.
Whiskey. They want whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey in the car.
So basically, they're going out to the car to make out, into the rain, into the stable or wherever it is they're keeping the car, and they instantly fall in love within a minute.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know what I think? I had this wonderful fantasy where you were living with me.
You just met me, dude.
But she's totally into it because, I don't know, it's just like an instantaneous chemistry. And there's a compatibility there too, because he's like a soldier with nothing better to do than follow this couple friend of his like out into Shrewsbury, where he doesn't even really want to go.
He's got a major Errol Flynn vibe to him.
Yes,
especially his mustache. His very manicured mustache.
He's got that pencil mustache with the nice like uptick toward the nostrils.
Yes.
Very virile. Yeah, and then they have one. And tell me what you're thinking. He like smushes his face into hers, and their bodies like contract, and like it's just the one kiss. That's all they get.
Yeah, a completely closed mouth kiss. Just lips tightly pursed together as they.
It's probably as far as they could have gone in 1932.
But the whole body is like they're smushed together, like.
Yeah, that's where she makes he asks her basically, or in his own way, if basically they have sex, if that's her job, is she a prostitute for the businessman? And she goes, oh no, he doesn't ask him to do that.
Yeah.
So that's one little way to talk about sex without actually talking about it. Again, trying to be creative to get around the rules.
Yeah, she tells him like, Bill just come down to and sit on the edge of my bed and tell me all the things that he's done that day, and so somebody can be proud of him. Because she's
just a sugar baby, so a rich man can brag about
yes, exactly.
His exploits.
Keep up and to hide his own heartbreak, he tells a sort of a dark story about his wife, who is like, him. Apparently, he wasn't so ritzy. Like, even though he has he got knighted, he's a sir now. Apparently, he didn't used to be quite so high standing, and. His wife, like, he bought her a cotton frock to go to this fucking, ball or whatever that his superiors were hosting, and he talks about, it's so British in the way that he's talking about how, they didn't say anything unkind to her, didn't snub, didn't, do anything like that, but they just wasn't quite good enough. The frock wasn't quite good enough, and he says that's what killed her, that, like, her being just a little bit snubbed, like, by these wives of, like, his bosses and whatnot, it caused her to just go, oh, I'm nothing, and she died.
It's very British, and keep in mind, at the time this came out, people over here probably wouldn't have seen anything really British, ever, because, they wouldn't be getting plays from over there, so you're getting such kind of a look into the British psyche, and that very stiff upper lip, lie back and think of England, and just carry on no matter what happens. And
Yeah.
it's so just quintessentially British.
And I think that's part of the reason it didn't do too well after the second week in the States. Like, this was a largely forgotten film. And
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
it didn't resurface until the late '60s, when a friend of James Whale's was demanding the negative of this film from Universal when they had lost the rights to it, and it was rediscovered and by mainly film buffs. Everybody remembers Frankenstein. This was only released a year before by the same director. But yeah,
This was the year after Frankenstein.
I thought it was the
Yeah,
year
it's
after.
the year after.
Karloff was a
Yeah,
star at this point.
yeah, exactly. But because all of the social situations, the relationships, and the storyline were very much entrenched in Britishness, it didn't fly in the way that everybody can dig Frankenstein because that's a book that's been around for hundreds of years. It's the original science fiction story, and it was in the American culture as much as the British, if not more. So a straight up monster film was a lot more attractive to an American audience, I guess, than this more their social commentaries and stature, and class and all that shit. Post World War I Britain didn't really communicate. But in the list of 100 films most influential of all the writers and directors and producers asked in the horror genre, this film makes it into number 71 in that list of 100 that people list.
That's kind of shocking. There's a lot to pick from.
Yeah.
Why this one?
Well, it sets up so many things. There's so
It's such
much.
a simple story. There's not a lot of technical breakthroughs.
No, but it's just the concept of a spooky old house. That's all you need.
That's true.
It's setting this gothic tone.
Yes.
Just look at the name, the old dark house. Now that's the trope of all tropes is a scary.
Though it's closer
haunted
to a
house.
castle.
Yes.
They were doing it for the first time.
Castles don't have phones, asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It kind of comes off as a castle a little bit.
Yeah, it has that kind of you hear old dark.
Was
house,
there a
it's
map
gonna be
painting?
some wooden Victorian thing. And instead it's
Did they do an establishing shot for the house? I can't
They
remember.
do.
Yeah, they do.
But it's
I don't
it's
remember
kind of like a thatch and mud kind of.
Okay.
Well, it's made of
house.
stone. It's
Yeah.
the only
Yeah.
way. It's the only thing that doesn't get washed away by the rain, because literally hillsides around them are crumbling and shit.
But they're built on rock, as he states. The old man. We're fine.
Yeah.
So while this is all happening, Karlov is getting blackout drunk in the kitchen, as he does not like storms. Was that the reasoning? He doesn't normally get drunk, but
Yeah,
he will drink during
Yeah,
rain.
he just makes or Horace makes an offhand comment of oh, when the night's like this, Morgan takes to drink. He becomes quite violent.
And he does. And
Yeah.
he goes after one of the characters, the blonde woman.
Yep. Who is wearing
then
this
fights
incredibly
ensue.
fetching, white silk
She
lace
puts on
dress.
these earrings
Dress
and this
thing.
gown and just
Yeah.
That's where most of the close-ups are on her.
She comes in after
Yep.
changing, and Rebecca Femme has been taunting her, telling her the whole history of the what do you call it, the Femme family, and how they're all godless, and you're godless too, and she puts her hand on her chest, not her boobs, but on her chest that's barely, it's bare and exposed because of the dress she's put on, and Gloria, or what's her name, Gloria Stewart, freaks out and is oh, get out, runs into the main hall and slams the door behind her, and all the guys turn around and they're oh, you make it look like a party. She's so well dressed. He's thank you. Yes.
yeah. So
Just
then
forget the whole. Yeah.
so they talk a bit and then her and her husband go upstairs to. Okay, well, so there's they need to get a lamp because it's getting dark.
Right.
And the old man doesn't want to go get it, so he sends the husband to go get it because he's afraid to go up this one flight of stairs. He
Well,
says,
he doesn't say that.
Well, he says
he-
the
he-
lamp is too heavy. There's
too
all
heavy.
kinds of excuses
Right.
he comes up with, but clearly there's something up these stairs that he doesn't want to deal with. And now
Yeah.
we're thinking, what is it? They've already mentioned the old, their father lives upstairs, but clearly there's something else up there. What's it going to be? What is it at the top of these stairs? And that's really setting up, the most important question is what's in this house, what's about to happen. So he eventually agrees to go up there and get the lamp, and he comes across a door that's been, bolted and locked 3 or 4 different times, and then kind of a
this is the husband of Gloria.
This is the husband, and there's a half-eaten plate of food, and some drink there, and so clearly there's somebody behind this door.
They do not want to get out.
Yeah, and they really don't want this person to get out. So I was wondering what that is. They get on there, and he kind of fuzzy on the timeline, but
he comes back down the stairs, and while he's up there, drunk Morgan has come into the main dining room, and Gloria, his wife, is all on her own. So she's being attacked and harassed by this drunk, hulking Boris Karloff, and that's when the husband comes down with the lamp, and they fight and tussle, and he throws the lamp at Karloff, and it shatters over his fucking head, and he falls down the stairs. Which I'm pretty sure he did his own stunts. Like, Karloff fell, like, he tumbles head over heels 3 times to the bottom of those stairs.
He felt that. He was on heroin, right? So I believe he didn't feel much.
Maybe he. Okay, I know Lugosi was on heroin, but
okay,
I think Karloff was just drunk.
Yeah.
Okay, got you.
Method acting, they used to.
Got to get into character. Yes.
Actually,
I'm a method actor.
You were talking about last time, right, Zach, about Dustin Hoffman and meeting Laurence Olivier.
Oh yeah.
Hoffman just
when they're making Marathon Man, yeah. I mean, Olivier is he's supposed to be torturing Dustin Hoffman, and he's had him up for days, sleep deprivation. So
Hoffman doesn't sleep for 3 days.
Yeah, Hoffman shows up. He hasn't slept. He's completely exhausted. He's like, and Olivier's like, what's going on? He's like, well, had to stay up if you're doing the scene. And Olivier turns to him and says, my dear boy, have you ever tried acting?
Shade. He hated you, your ass, man. Anyway. So Karloff gets knocked about the head. They just kind of stare down at him at the bottom of the stairs like, he'll be all right.
Right? Yes. Don't tie him up or nothing either. No. He'll sleep it off. Yes.
And they go back upstairs, and this is the time. This is where the couple together, since he won't leave her alone anymore in this stupid fucking house, they discover Roderick Fenn, the oldest, the father of Horace and Rebecca.
Over 100 years old, bedridden.
So has this long, stringy white hair and this kind of wispy beard that's white, but has a woman's voice. Kind of an old woman's voice like this.
Well, I mean,
very, very strange and off-putting. And now think about it, that was an interesting choice they made, because having it, look like a man but using a voice like that really makes you kind of remember it more than you would just it being an old man. There's something very unsettling about the whole situation.
I mean, you've all seen that. Many of us have seen that. Lately, photos of Steven Tyler, right? And he looks like somebody's fucking cool aunt.
Oh god!
He's got the wrinkles. And he just kind of looks really fucking feminine. He's covered in scarves and shit.
Yeah.
This just happens when dudes get old. Like we lose our testosterone. We lose a lot of our virility, and we start being a little more like chicks. I don't know. Get those.
I like the scene though up
boobs.
there because he's telling his story. He doesn't get a lot of opportunities to talk, and it shows. And he's like, I want to tell you my story, but I don't know if you have the time. And the lady's in the room. She's like, oh, you should get some sleep. And he goes, oh, no. And he starts telling the story. And then she just keeps saying, are you sure you don't want to get sleep? Like, is she trying to shut him up this whole time? Yeah. She just keeps, 3 or 4 times. She's like, you just go to sleep now. Let's go to sleep.
Oh, no, Sir Roderick. Have a potato.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just waiting for that. Like, old man, shut up. And he tells them about, the children that died when, 20-year-olds who died, his daughters.
Godless to the last.
He wasn't like that.
No, but Rebecca Femme, when she's talking about her sister,
everybody was godless,
who was actually really free-spirited and sexy. That's what she's mainly salty about. She's just pissed that she was the ugly sister. So
there's definitely lots of shade
with her queen brother and out in his house in the middle of nowhere.
And
there's a lot of history and resentment in this
Yeah.
family, but we never really know what it is exactly.
and Rebecca, when she's talking to Gloria, the wife, like earlier in the movie, she says to him, "But every time I would come around with their women and their brazen harpies hanging about, lolling up things, they would tell me to go and pray." Yeah, because they didn't want your fucking ugly ass hanging around,
No.
trying to have a good
True.
time. So she becomes the super religious one because she
Checks out.
and you can tell she's vain because after she's done chiding this woman for just being a modern lady and being well dressed and looking very attractive, as she's leaving the house or leaving the room, she looks in the mirror and she she licks her fingers and flattens down her hair or her eyebrows or something. So she's still preoccupied with how she looks, even though she rails about how godless people who obsess about their appearance are.
See, I didn't notice that.
Oh, you were drunk.
Good catch.
Yeah, that's one good thing about this movie is it really, it's a fairly simple plot, but it really holds up for repeat viewings because there's all these little lines that you miss. With these little, very passive-aggressive British quips that could go right over our American heads unless we sit down and like, oh, wait, no, he just insulted him. He wasn't saying something nice.
Yeah. Watching with subtitles helps because some of the accents get a little thick, so if you're not used to it. I turn on the subtitles after the first 15 minutes because I'm like, I'm missing so much. I'm not sure exactly what they're saying.
Yeah, it can help.
But is that the point now where Karloff wakes up?
Well, no. So
something
so
else
Sir
happened before
Roderick
that.
reveals who's behind the locked door.
Oh, yes. The son.
Yes. He says,
Saul.
"Ah, yes, Saul.
Saul.
It's my other son, Saul." And he talks about how they're all a bit touched with the madness. We're all touched with it a little, except for me. It's
Exactly.
fucking hilarious. He said,
It's just the best, old witch laugh you've ever heard. It's amazing.
yeah, talking about how he thinks, at least I think I'm not. It's very cute. Very cute for a 102-old man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's when they go back down and everybody reconnoiters in the dining hall or whatever. Pemberton and the chorus girl come back in from the car getting schnookered, and they have a conversation with Charles Lawton.
And where, again, things move very quickly in that conversation.
And it's revealed, yes, she's leaving you. We're going to get married. I'm going to ask her tomorrow in the morning daylight or something.
And you're coming.
In the cold light of morning.
It's the cold light of morning, yeah. And she's going to marry me, and it's just boom, just comes in. We're going to get married for sure. We're in love instantly.
Then he invites
That's how
him.
it's gonna be.
Because you're coming to the wedding, too.
Bill's reaction, damned fool. Well, yes, probably, but it's what I'm going to do. He's actually really happy for them, and he understands. It was always a platonic relationship,
Yeah.
supposedly.
Supposedly.
That's her story, and she's sticking to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're all buddy or whatever. Oh yeah, Pemberton says, "Well, Bill, you're all right." He says, "Who said you could call me Bill?" He says, "Oh, nobody, but you try and stop me." Then they
So British.
They ask him to pick up the dining table, which has been flipped over by Morgan, and Lawton says my favorite line in the whole film, which is, "That's no way to treat roast beef." Don't know why.
Yeah, this was one of Lawton's first film roles. He's actually probably the most notable person in the movie besides, maybe Karloff. Ended up having a great career,
yeah.
Mutiny on the Bounty and a lot of other things. And this was kind of his first
The
thing.
Island
and,
of Dr. Moreau.
Island of Dr. Moreau, yeah, and he's just great. You're kind of just drawn to how just boisterous and obnoxious and just I don't know. He's just very loud and in your face, but it's just kind of hilarious. It kind of works.
But he can also pull it back and be very serious and actually get across the point. When he's talking about his dead wife, he pulls it way back in. He gets a little dark, and he's not what he appears to be anymore. So there's a lot of depth to that character that he brings out. You just think is a jackass from the get-go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then they, I'm pretty sure Karloff comes back down, and is drunk as stupor. He's let loose Saul from his triple locked
Dun
door.
dun
Bum, bum,
dun.
bum.
But he doesn't reveal himself. First, he reveals his hand.
Yeah,
As Karloff goes down the stairs for the
Yeah, a
big
hand
fight.
comes down from behind the wall
it's all
on
twisted
the banister.
and creeping like a spider.
Is there even a body attached? Is this the Addams Family?
You're right. That
Is this
might.
the Thing?
I mean, that literally might have been the inspiration for Thing.
Very well could have been.
For Lurch.
Well,
for
both,
Lurch,
mate.
for this
both.
guy. Yeah.
Think about it, because it's, he looks like Lurch a lot with his kind of sunken cheekbones and just his suit, and it's
Well, Karloff
it's Lurch.
Karloff is the inspiration for Lurch, but we're talking about Saul's hand.
Well, him
Yeah,
and
yes.
the Fembra, the butler, I'd say both of them.
No, because because literally there's just that one shot of like Saul's hand. It's his twisted madman's hand.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, that could be a inspiration for Thing.
Yeah, that's what
I'm saying.
yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was saying. Yeah. Who knows how many films this could have been inspired by? But
I mean, that's the perception we got. We can get into well, Tristan and I saw one specific reference right away.
Oh yeah.
We can probably touch on that later.
Yeah, we were talking about how why does this movie stack up in the list of most influential films for horror people, and that entire trope of we're caught in a storm, oh no, here's a house, or in Rocky Horror, a castle.
right.
And then there's a butler and his sister.
Yes, exactly.
And they have a master who you don't see. It's Rocky Horror.
Yeah, and this was indeed one of the cited sources. I studied and wrote a thesis about Rocky Horror, and this was one of the central inspirations for Richard O'Brien, who wrote Rocky. Yeah, he was just a big film buff of these old school, of the Hammer horror films, of old Universal releases, just old campy science fiction and horror films. That's all that he used to create Rocky Horror. He just wanted to.
And then we watched this on YouTube, and it auto played into the next movie. And what else was the next movie but an old Fay Wray movie?
Right, exactly. Whatever happened to Fay Wray? She got fucked by a 50-foot ape.
Lucky. No.
So now the brother Saul is making his way down the stairs, and he's revealed, and he's an older man. Is this kind of
well, all the
unkempt.
men are in a fight.
Yeah, all the
with
men.
Morgan, and they all go lock themselves in the kitchen.
Right.
So it's only one person left to deal with Saul.
Yeah,
That's kind of
and
important.
who but Pemberton?
Yes, Pemberton himself, the gentleman.
Yeah, and the women have been shut away in Rebecca's room, Rebecca Femme's room.
Yeah.
For safety from.
Who's in the room? Well, then Saul. I don't mean to steal your thunder, Zach, but Saul comes down and he pleads. What was it, Pemberton?
Yeah.
To not hurt him, and he says this is all a big misunderstanding. I'm not dangerous. I was put up there because I witnessed a murder. And Zach, you can.
Yeah, well, from there, that is part of this movie, is that there's so many mysteries that they don't even try to resolve, and it leaves you with this kind of sense of not getting closure, and in a way that kind of adds to the chilling effect of it all, because we never know. We know they're all mad, but maybe they were cruel to Saul. Maybe he was the good one, and they were the ones who were wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Maybe
He
they
was
were
driven
all
mad.
just insane, and Saul had to be locked up, but they were still wrong. And it's never clear. Going back to what was the crime in London. I missed that part the first time.
Yeah.
What was up with what's up with the dad? This whole family. There's so many mysteries and questions we have about it that are never even resolved. And you always get that kind of sense, are these people even real? This doesn't. It's very. It is like something out of a horror movie, because they don't seem like actual people in real life, and
Well, it
really leaves you with these questions.
It's a strange time of the original novel that this was based on. This is coming right after World War I. This is very much in the original novel and the movie itself. This is very much about post World War One disillusionment in Europe and in the UK, because life seems rather meaningless. Like in the case of in the aftermath of like a war that caused millions of deaths for not that much land being gained or any real change of things other than back to the status quo. That's why Pemberton doesn't seem to give a fuck about anything. It's like, well, what is there to give a fuck about? Like, I was in this war, and I'm no better for it, and I have no ambitions, except maybe to find love. Like, that's really the end of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, dark twist.
So Saul, earlier they said, oh, if you let him out, he's going to burn the house down. And what does he do? He sets the curtains on fire, tries to burn the house down.
Yeah.
A house made of stone, which will not burn too easily.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's also pouring rain outside, so it's like you'll burn
You're burn a house down
the
in
house
pissing
a
rain.
bit, but yeah.
Well,
a stone house in the rain. Yeah, I'm sure you'll get real far burning it down.
but even trying, and there's enough to burn where you could like die of smoke inhalation. So,
Yeah.
like
so
that
he sets
could be
the curtains
problem.
on fire, and that's kind of cool because you do see a pretty big fire scene. That's a nice little effect.
He's got a good laugh too. Like he's definitely the madman of the group. He's a lot more involved in his madness and like excited by it.
Yeah, they play off the madness of the family very well in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. What better place to hole up for the night in a house full of mad people? Just mad weirdos. Like what bothers me more than the madness is just the weirdness. Like of Horace and Rebecca.
Yeah, they're not just mad. They all have these little quirks. Like the sister is very religious and is shooing everything. She's those old Victorian sensibilities that are still in her. And
she's all about God.
The brother
she
just doesn't.
None of it.
Yeah, the brother just doesn't care about anything, and Karloff is who knows how they even got that guy. There's so many little quirks about them all.
I bet he's like a bastard son. Is really the case. It's like Roderick Fem, like the patriarch of the family, had probably banged a giantess from Wales at some point. Gotten her pregnant. They got left with fucking Morgan.
So anyway, they put the fire out. They defeat Saul somehow. I'm drawing a blank on what exactly happens with that.
Oh, right. So Pendrell. Yeah, go ahead, Josh. Oh yeah. So so Pendrell. So Saul tells that is like talking to Pendrell, and he's got hold of the big dinner knife that like Horace was using to cut the roast beef. This is a massive fucking knife. He's telling them the story about Saul and David from the Bible, and how Saul had a javelin in his hand, and like twice David dodged him, and on the third, you must be careful, my friend, and fucking throws the knife. And, like, Pendrell dodges it, and it sticks in the fucking chair next to him, which is a crazy effect for 1932.
It looked good.
Yeah, like, did the guy throw the fucking knife? Like, how did they get that, like, that... Because you see the knife flying from his hand sticking into the chair. It's amazing.
Maybe he was a professional knife thrower.
Maybe. Missed Pendrell by a fucking inch. Like,
right?
It was really close. Saul comes up on him in no time at all with a fucking chair and like smashes it over his fucking head. Pendrell's out for the count, it seems. Saul grabs a log that's on fire from the fire, runs upstairs, starts lighting the curtains on fire. Pendrell comes to and goes after him to try and stop him. They tussle like up there on this high fucking landing and eventually break the banister, and they fall down together onto their fucking asses, like onto the stone floor, and they're both knocked unconscious.
Oh, that's right.
And everybody comes back out from hiding and whatnot. Karloff just straight up busts through the door that's been holding him in. Just breaks the fucking thing completely to pieces. It's like it's not a Karloff role or a movie unless you see him smashing the shit out of something.
It's in his contract.
Yeah, it's in his contract. You see Saul is, hurt, and and this again harkens back to Rocky Horror, where it's like Rocky and seeing fucking Frankenfurter all like dead on the floor or whatever in his pantyhose, picks him up and carries him back up the stairs, and he's so sad. The chorus girl played by Lillian Bond, she's devastated because she thinks that Pendrell's dead. So she's like on the verge of tears, and like really a jarring performance, I thought. Like clutching him and like, you know, thinking, oh my God, it's really, he's gone, like we're about to have this thing, like, and she exclaims, he's alive, like, you know, she can feel him breathing or something, and that's what makes it a comedy.
And yeah, then the sun is coming out, and like, oh, the sun is out now. We're gonna go get an ambulance. And
Charles Lauden's sitting there within the chair with a fucking halberd in his hand. It's like he's been sitting guard all fucking night.
Yeah, and suddenly whatever problems there were with the roads have the daylight have fixed all of those up, and now they can go get the ambulance, and it ends with her, you know, clutching onto Pemberton, and that was really jarring. Was it just suddenly, oh, now the guy's defeated and it's gonna be a happy ending?
Yep.
And it just cuts to the credits, and you're just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, they had an hour and 15 minutes to finish the film. That's how long it was, which is kind of is that normal? I feel like that's probably more normal than I remember.
Well, let's see how long.
Such an hour to hour and 15-minute horror movies like Nosferatu.
Well, there's only 72 minutes, I believe. And I know nowadays, in order to legally be considered a feature film, you need to have at least 75 minutes.
Yeah, that's why you get bad movie directors are always fluffing up their really crappy movies.
Well, the best example of this is one of the greatest stoner movies ever, Mac and Devin Go to High School, where they spent 15 minutes just on the credit scenes.
Oh my God.
They had to stuff more stuff in there to get it to exactly 75 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Frankenstein.
It's a well-known strategy.
Frankenstein was only 71 minutes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, these horror films back in the day were really short.
Well, this was when you'd get probably, you know, double features and you know, a cartoon, a newsreel.
Exactly right.
It would be a whole event, the whole thing.
So what you're saying is when they remake this, they're going to have to write a lot of new content. When they get Van Diesel to play the starring role.
Well, it's gonna be like Kevin Hart is playing.
Yeah, there you go.
The American, some loud American, Zach Galifianakis or something.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you can make this a dark comedy. Like, why haven't they remade this yet? Come on, Hollywood. I know you're out of ideas.
It could be like the Chris Rock remake of Four Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah.
Or Death at a Funeral.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Yeah, Mummy, 73 minutes. Yeah, you're just used to having those double features and like, you know, the cartoon in between or like a comedian in between.
Oh,
like,
so that's what they did.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we didn't need much more. It was, you know, we didn't have a lot of effects and other
I think some more of the action scenes they could have made more of a point of what was like happening. Like that was a little tricky.
They could have made
sometimes.
more of a to do about when Saul finally comes out, because he comes out and then it's a very, you know, a fight that clearly Josh and I completely forgot about. It wasn't really built up to much, and then we're gonna go for help, and the movie's over. They all have happily ever after, but we're not gonna see it. And it was like, oh, okay, well,
that happened. That's a movie.
That's a movie.
Yeah, that was it.
That's a movie.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, it's the 30s. People don't want something heavy anymore. Like, this is
Lord of the Rings with Lawrence of Arabia. That was like 4 hours.
Well, yeah, but that's not the 30s.
Gone with the Wind came out 6 or 7 years later, and that was still to this day the highest grossing in terms of ticket sales movie of all time.
Well, that's well.
People would go to see Gone with the Wind 4 or 5 times.
But that's well after you've got all the renewal of like the New Deal coming into effect for a lot of people. They have more money. They have longer attention spans.
Well, that was the thing. Even during the heights of the Depression, the movies were still in their heyday, because it didn't matter how little they had, they would still, you know, get a nickel or whatever, go to the movies. People always needed bread in circuses, you know, even in the most dire times, and that's something that's even true to this day. You know, they had to be distracted somehow from the, you know, kind of terrible environment they were in.
Yeah, it's why comedies play well. It's, you know, there's, even though it's a horror story, like eventually, you know, the cold light of day does emerge the morning after, like the darkest before the dawn, all the rest of that shit. Like, people really needed that in what they consumed and what they could see.
Yeah, it wasn't a horror so much as it was kind of a gothic romance, and the old school kind of romantic poetry, something you'd see from Byron or Shelley or something like that. You got that kind of vibe, but also a little bit of Wilde, a little bit of Poe, just a lot of different things put in this kind of a play that they were putting on the screen.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this is, or these are books that people might have had around the household. Those kind of stories for years and years. Anyway.
I was kind of surprised with the name of the movie. I was expecting ghosts or something supernatural, but this is all very grounded film.
Yeah, no.
There's nothing out of the ordinary except for maybe some behavior, but I don't know.
Well, that was the trick of it was there's some kind of person locked up in this room. Who is it?
Yeah.
What is their story?
Yeah.
But yeah, when you finally did get to it, it was Saul, and then there was very little with Saul.
Yeah, some old guy who was a little deranged. Yeah, not very threatening, honestly. Like, he did knock out Pepperton with a chair with a single blow.
And then he's like, "Oh, I'm not crazy." You're like, "Ooh, that's interesting." But then he does try to burn the house down. It's like, no, you should have.
He should have went the not crazy route. I would have felt, I would have been like, "Oh, interesting, right?"
Because if it's like, "Oh, he is actually going to burn the house down," it's like, "Oh, well then, yeah, they should have locked him up."
The old lady, the house owner, the homeowner lady, she should have came down there and they should have had a conversation, about a little back and forth and where they could accuse each other of something.
There's no resolution with the brother and sister either. They're just kind of like, well, these people are going to leave the house and
and weird people
it's partially
weird.
burned and
we
still have this insane drunken manservant and this crazy brother and this old man in bed and we're just stuck
this
in
is maybe
this
something that happens to them all the time. They are in England. There's a lot of rainstorms in England, which means that Morgan was probably getting blackout drunk constantly.
Yeah.
So and having weird people come by. So maybe this
is the first
just
time
Tuesday afternoon.
That Saul got out. Really,
Yeah, exactly. So maybe this is just something they replay all the time.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one of the classic plots that you refer to as a voyage and return sort of story, right? It's not about resolving anything. It's not about a hero's journey of coming to grips with something. It's none of that. It's just oh, we're on a journey. We're in this car ride to Shrewsbury. Oh shit! And you end up in this alternate world, this universe that exists unto itself. It's a world it is what it is, and it always has been and always will be, and it's fucking strange. So people get lost in that. And then eventually they come out of it again, and they're and the people who have gone through that voyage, who've come through the house, it's about their coming out of it again and what's different about them.
And in this case, love, and moving on.
Yeah. So there you have it, Old Dark House. What'd you guys think?
We're going to do any final thoughts? Who wants to go first?
I saw this, you guys all saw it at least twice, and last night we were hanging out, and I was like, oh man, we got the podcast tomorrow. I haven't seen it yet, so we all sat down and watched it last night, and not the first time, it was it wasn't what I was expecting, but there was a lot to like about it, especially because there were so many things from these future horror movies and suspense thrillers in general that came about from doing this, and it did seem a lot like the early British Hitchcock and things like that, and James Whale, just his whole vibe was a lot like that, and I'd say I give it a 6 out of 10. Definitely holds up after almost 90 years.
Right.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of with you, Zach. 6 out of 10 is fair. There's some pacing issues. Some of the scenes are confusing on how they resolve. There's some story elements I wish they could have played with more, but they were just kind of it felt like they were kind of just rushing through it. They probably just had this short script idea. They had so much time to shoot it. And they had this location, and they're just all right, whatever, we'll make it work. And I don't know how long they took to shoot it. Feels like this is the sort of movie you don't take long doing.
This only took 3 months for them to shoot.
Okay.
Well,
that's actually longer than I expected.
That's something I want to say, too, is if you look at James Whale's career, he was a theater director, and he directed his first movie in 1930 when he was already 40 years old. he directed movies up until the outbreak of World War II, in 41. So in a career of over, a little over 10 years, he made 20 films.
Mm.
This guy knocked him out, and then he, retired and lived out. He died in, the mid-50s, but he really just banged it out once he started, he was completely new to being a film director, and really found his way right away. He made most of these Universal films, which I remember: Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, but then also Showboat. So really, really a lot of versatility in his work as a director.
Yeah, he's a very good company man and gets the work done, and it comes through that way. And that's not necessarily bad, not necessarily good.
He's
pretty standard.
It's a workman quality more than being artistic.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Like, this wasn't like an art piece per se, but there's still some creativity. It was not bad. It was better than I kind of thought it was going to be. I was expecting worse. I know, right? I was expecting more supernatural elements, but it was all very, very, very grounded, all very realistic. These are things that all could have happened to anybody. So in that sense, it was interesting. But yeah, 6 out of 10. Put it on your list of must-watches? No. Unless you're like trying to research something. But you can live the rest of your life and not watch this. You'll be fine. Yeah. But if you do, it's only an hour 15 minutes and whatever. You'll be able to talk to your friends about it, and they'll think you're so smart for knowing something so obscure. Yeah. What about you, Tristan?
Well, that's why I picked it. I'm going to give this a solid 7 out of 10. Just because I have a special place in my heart for not only its influence on later things like Rocky Horror and the horror genre generally, but I really enjoy J.B. Priestley's writing. I love his stories. Like a few months ago, before quarantine, the last play that I saw that was live was based on one of his scripts for An Inspector Calls, and I just love the way he messes with social standing and relationships, and there's always a larger message at work there, like this post-war disillusionment and yeah, I don't know, I just like it. Maybe it's also because I'm somewhat British. My family are like Scots, and I'm a first generation American. So I always kind of had a bit of a key into that, and a little bit more of a ken of, what those caricatures are like. Like, oh yeah, Sir, what's his face? Of course he's a fucking like a big raucous asshole. And of course, the woman his wife kills herself because her cotton frock wasn't up to snuff. Like that's very.
Yeah,
British.
It seems like for its time, and if you were, especially if you were British in that time, there would have been, a laugh every minute, because there would have been these much more relevant references and jokes that really just hit home back then.
And it shows in the numbers as well. This did phenomenally well in the UK, whereas it closed after 10 days in the States. Yeah, so
well, I can definitely see seeing Frankenstein the year before, and Karloff's got a new movie, and you go to it's this, this all talk.
Where's the monster?
Piece.
Where's the mad scientist?
Yeah.
Where's the fucking lightning storm and shit?
Yeah,
it's kind of a jet.
Exactly. And that's true of our American movies to this day. We want the big CG monster movie instead of your little character piece.
They should do when they remake this. They should do Morgan's role completely.
They remade
CGI.
it in the 60s. Actually.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
And they need to redo it now with the CGI, and I want to see it all CGI, and I want it to be terrible, because that's what Hollywood does.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna make Saul into a ghost or something like that.
Yeah, there you go. Make it aliens.
And yet, on Rotten Tomatoes, this gets 100%.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing offensive
only
to not like
film
about
buffs
it.
See it.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing like this that's alienating necessarily, unless you're alienated by British culture or something, or British, speak. But other than that, it's easy to digest.
Yeah.
Very easy to digest.
Yeah. So 7 out of 10 for me.
That's a good score.
Yeah. I like this movie. It's charming. It's quick.
It's not bad. Yeah.
And it's a classic.
I don't regret having seen it. I should see more classic films. It's there's so many movies out there to watch, and I guess now we're in quarantine. There's more time to do that, but
Nosferatu, Vampire. From the
Le
1920s.
I've seen
Vampire.
Nosferatu already. Yeah. Vampirella? No, that's a classic.
Man, we should start reviewing old Aunt Vampira movies.
There we go.
She was, of course, the show host of
I remember, yeah. It's pre-Elvira.
Pre-Elvira. Yeah.
Pre-Elvira.
1954.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they broadcast vintage horror films hosted by Vampira.
So, interesting fact now, we have now been going for much longer than the actual movie is.
Yeah.
On today's episode.
Well, after it's edited, it'll be shorter. Yeah.
It's funny because Tristan and I were saying yesterday, like, oh my god, it's such a short movie. I don't know if we'll have enough material. And this has been one of our longer episodes, just all the different things we've said about it.
You can make anything work, right? I mean, there's subtext here. You know,
I think
there's
there's
things
I
being
think there's a
analyzed.
lot to, especially when the repeat viewings with all the little British quips and jabs that you have to really dig into to figure out what it is that they're really saying.
It's like a British Tarantino film.
Have a potato.
Yeah.
Have a potato, guys. So it's my turn to pick a film this week, and
Oh, we're fucked.
so we were doing horror, right? And I was thinking, there's so many good horrors, but I have something that popped in my mind. That's not quite a horror, but it's dark and
Is
fucked
it
up.
Halloween adjacent?
Yeah, right. Not that good. No, actually, this is. I don't know. I remember this being like really good, but no one's ever heard of it before. It's called The Doom Generation, starring Rose McGowan and James Duvall, and a whole lot of like other celebrities that you're gonna be like, holy crap, they're in this. Just you wait. So it's kind of like a warning, a cautionary tale of the pathway Generation X was on, and how they were leading to a path of nihilism. And like it's a very dark, twisted film. Yeah, it's pretty short too, an hour 25 minutes, so it's barely at length.
Billed as a heterosexual movie by Greg Araki.
What?
I was reading the Wikipedia, and that was the thing that stuck out to me.
That's what a
Good
heterosexual
Tristan, because
movie.
your pick was pretty gay.
Yeah.
Balance.
Got him. Balance, all things balance. It's not a horror movie, but should leave you with a weird feeling throughout it, like kind of like something very. I'm watching something gross.
It's
This is
the existential
very-
generational horror of Generation X.
Yes, it is.
A
It's
heterosexual
very
movie,
strange.
actually more awkward than a gay movie.
Is that what it says in the Wikipedia too?
No, I'm just, no,
Oh.
you're saying
Yeah.
it's just going to leave you feeling really weird. I'm like,
Yeah, you're gonna feel really weird.
I felt weird,
especially the
weirdly
scene.
comfortable
Yeah.
watching
The
James Whale.
bestiality scenes, like the
No.
decapitation scenes.
No.
Did Harmony Korine make this?
Just you wait. It's an interesting
Yeah,
film. It's not artsy at all. It is very nihilistic and 90s.
Directed,
It's
produced,
so
and
90s.
written by Greg Araki. Not Iraqi, Araki.
Iraqi. Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting.
All
It's an
right.
interesting one.
All right.
I think you'll like it.
Oh, Josh is moving into his 40s with one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Little flashback.
95, man.
95 is a hell of a year.
Not that I remember
All
it
right.
much.
No,
No.
but yeah,
We're
that was our
watching
show,
Barney.
ladies and gentlemen. Barney.
Oh, Margaret Cho is in this.
Yeah, dude. Weird cast.
Carrie Farrell's in it.
Skinny puppy.
Skinny Puppy's
What
in it.
the
Yeah, dude.
Heidi
This is
Fleiss.
such. Yeah, it's such a weird 90s industrial nihilistic like journey. It's a hero's journey though. You're gonna get a lot out of this. I feel.